Are you ready to get hooked on the idea of paper piecing, not only as a fun hobby, but also the ideal craft and the ultimate stash buster? It's portable, you can do it anywhere, you can use up all those tiny scraps you have lying around, and you can make so many stunning projects from placemats and aprons to entire quilts. So join me as I start on yet another paper piecing project with fabric from you, the viewer, and answer some of the many questions that you had about the process. A little bit of context for those of you who are new here. I am Shannon Makes, and last year I put out a call for viewers' scraps. I invited you to bust your stash by sending some of it to me so that I could make something fun and beautiful out of all the fabric from this lovely community, and I've already started in on the process. So this past summer I made the very first community patchwork project, and if you haven't seen that video yet, it might be helpful to watch that first, because in this video, not only am I continuing the project with a different set of colors and shapes, but I'm also going to be answering some of your questions about the process. But if you've already seen that video, let's rewind to past summer and start at the very beginning. Man, look at all these fun buttons. Oh, velvet paisley, are you kidding me? Amazing. Ooh, fun texture. Such cute little packaging, oh my gosh. Gorgeous packaging, and oh my gosh, it's so smooth and drapey. Wow. I wonder what the rest of this fabric is. It really looks like it used to be part of a garment. Ah. I've enclosed a few yo-yos and some circles of material from the 50s and 60s that are from my mom and aunt. Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. So these must be yo-yos. Ah, so fun. Hello, this is scrap fabric from me sewing my wife her first Pride skirt outfit for her first Pride out as a woman. Love your thrifty crafting. Have fun. Oh my God, I do love that. Okay, we're gonna put this front and center to piss off all the people who will eventually watch this video and not support gay pride or trans rights. Look at all these fun colors. Now, this is just a tiny selection of all the fabric I got, but if you want to see more of it, I do have an entire video up on my second channel dedicated to opening your fabrics, fawning over them, reading all of the lovely notes that came with them, and just generally marveling over your generosity, because people didn't only send fabrics, but they sent notions, bits and bobs, stickers, corgi paraphernalia, and more. I do highly recommend it. It is great to keep you company while you craft. You can have it playing in the background while you do other tasks, or honestly, if you just want to sit down and really look at all the amazing fabrics people gave to me and hear the stories behind them. It is a very heartwarming and cozy video, so I highly recommend to go and check it out after this one. Also, if you missed the first scrap fabric call, but you would like to contribute something to the community patchwork project, I have a PO box open once again now through the end of December 2024. So if you would like to send me something, all the information is in the video description. I will say some of you definitely packaged these like you were intending them to survive World War III and then the zombie apocalypse and then maybe some major flooding, and honestly, given the state of the postal service these days, it's probably not a bad idea. This person definitely has a great range of colors. I see a corgi! Oh my goodness, I see a corgi. Seriously though, look at that. Oh, got one from New Zealand. Oh, this one's from Scotland, Arkansas, Germany, France, Kentucky, Montana. Absolutely stunning, wow. Y'all have the loveliest fabric. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. I am so honored, and I really hope that I can do your fabrics justice, because I am overwhelmed in the best sense of the word with all the love you guys have shown and the generosity and sending me all of these scraps. We all know I am partial to llamas. Cute. Look, she embroidered me. That is gorgeous. That is so much fun. Something else that's been very fun is just the range of sizes that people have sent me. Some people will send me one tiny scrap. Other people will send me like a lot of really large chunks or even just one big chunk or a ton of tiny scraps. Like really, it runs the whole gamut because I didn't precise what I wanted, and I'm very glad that I didn't because I'm kind of enjoying the variety. People can just send whatever it is they think I want or that they want to get rid of, and it's perfect. Cotton from a trip to a tiny town in Vermont. Velvet, I honestly don't know where it came from. Wool, bought in the 80s and never used. This is a piece of kimono silk that was brought back from Tokyo. Well, now I've got an absolute mountain of fabric and also some stunning cards over here that were so sweet. So now I have to wash all of these, or actually perhaps it would make more sense. I'm gonna sit down and sort through them, pick out which fabrics I want to take with me to Norway and wash those, and then I think I have to hop on a plane. So here I'm sorting through everything and trying to decide what fabrics to bring to Norway with me. And as you can see, I'm using my Miss Quilty fabrics here as the inspiration for the colorway. So light greens, light pinks, like really thinking spring tones here. Now I've partnered with Miss Quilty several times in the past, and I'm thrilled that they're sponsoring another video because if you haven't heard of them, they are a quilting subscription box that delivers high quality fabrics and patterns to your door on a monthly basis. So each kit is gonna include 12 pieces of 100% cotton fabric. It always comes in these really bright, fun, colorful prints, and you'll get a magazine as well with 4 to 5 really easy to follow projects to help give you inspiration and direction. Plus, on top of that, they've actually started making video tutorials for every project. So if you love the idea of crafting, but you have a hard time deciding what project to make or which fabrics to choose, Miss Quilty can help eliminate some of that decision paralysis. You can follow the instructions in the magazine or the video tutorials to make one of their projects, or you can use the fabric for other things, just like what I'm doing here. So if this sounds like something that would interest you and you'd like new colors and patterns and inspiration delivered to your doorstep every month, or if you know someone in your life that would appreciate being gifted a Miss Quilty subscription, you can follow the link in the video description and use my code to get 20% off. Plus, right now they're running a special sale for the holiday, so go check them out. So this absolute mountain of fabric is everything that I brought from home from y'all, and I'm a little bit ashamed to admit how much space it took up in my suitcase, but it is going to be absolutely worth it. These are all stunning. I'm so excited to start working with them. I do have one small local addition, and that is this small bag of fabric that I got at a local thrift store. And let me just say really quick off the bat, Norwegian thrift stores, I'm absolutely in love with them. Based on my very limited experience, they have some amazing crafting supplies, so much fun stuff there for really good price, a lot of natural fibers. So if you are interested in coming along and seeing what exactly a Norwegian thrift store looks like and what all that I got to add to my crafting repertoire to jam back into my suitcase when I go back to Montreal, then be sure to tune in for my nail binding video. In the meantime, I do have a small handful of fabrics here that came from the local thrift store. These do not need to be ironed. These definitely do, because a lot of them did not survive the suitcase very well. They are very crinkly and wrinkly, so I have managed to source an iron, finally, thankfully. So this is from our show. I need to get it back to wardrobe for tonight's show, actually. So gonna be pressing my way through all of this fabric and getting a start on answering your questions that you had from my very first English paper piecing video. And I figured I would start with a pretty easy one, which is just how do you decide, or how do you know how much fabric to leave when you're cutting them out into the shapes for your templates, your little paper pieces. much fabric do you need to cut out around your paper template in order to start paper piecing? And the answer to that is however much you want. It's your circus, it's your monkeys. Honestly, when I was tackling this, I sat down and thought, well, I don't know, what seems to make sense? What would make me comfortable? And in my case, it ended up being about 1/4 inch of seam allowance around my paper, and that worked really, really well. But there are a few things to consider. One would be, how comfortable are you with hand sewing? If you're really comfortable with it, you need a smaller seam allowance. The other one would be, how thick are your fabrics? The thicker your fabric, the more turn of cloth you have, and therefore the more seam allowance you're going to need. That was definitely the problem that we saw that I had in that first video, wishing I had left myself just a tiny bit more seam allowance on those thicker fabrics. Other things to consider: what is the size of your template? If you're working with really itty bitty teeny tiny templates, like I have some very small triangles up in the cupboard here for a future project, those are going to need a smaller seam allowance, or else it's just going to cover the entire triangle. But if you have a pretty massive shape, then you know you can get away with a larger seam allowance and it's not going to get in the way of anything. And then something else that you can remember is that you don't have to cut out all of your fabric all at once. You can literally cut out a couple pieces with a given seam allowance, sew them up, see how it feels, and then adjust that seam allowance for future pieces. Like, I had to cut all my fabric out at once because I have some kind of specific and extenuating circumstances. And also, I'm fairly confident in the fact that I would be okay. I would manage regardless. But if you are uncertain, then just cut out a couple pieces. Try it. See if you need more, see if you need less, then continue cutting out more and more fabric. Like, you don't have to do it all at once. That might help ease some concerns. Now, I do feel like I should mention, because some of you probably are already headed to your keyboards to leave me a comment on it. Yes, I do know they make travel irons. I do in fact have a travel iron. If you have been watching the channel for a while, you will have seen me use it last Christmas when I had to whip up an emergency costume for our show in a couple days in the middle of rehearsals due to a curious misunderstanding with the direction of that show. So I have one, I love it. I link it in the description of most of my sewing videos because it does work really, really well. However, it is 110. It runs on a non-European 220 voltage. This is the kind of thing that does not tend to work super well without like an actual proper transformer, and I did not feel like bringing one when I figured there was a pretty good chance I could eventually scrounge one up here on contract. You know, they should have an iron somewhere. Turns out they do. I also had a ton of questions relating to the topic of templates, paper shapes, sizes, all of that good stuff. So as you saw in the first project, I started out with the classic shape, the hexagon. It is this big, and I really enjoyed working with them. But for this project, I decided I wanted to try a different shape, just shake it up a little bit. But then I had trouble figuring out which shape I wanted to use because I wanted something that would look good if you just made a random pattern out of it. I did not want the kind of thing that looks more like a traditional quilt, kind of like what you see here, where it looks really good, but you have to plan out the colors and the patterns ahead of time, and or you need multiple template shapes to make the pattern. I kind of wanted to avoid that. I ended up falling in love with the jewel template here, and particularly the fact that you can add two of them together to make a little heart shape. And I thought that was really fun because as long as you have two of the same fabric together, then you've got that heart shape, and then those heart shapes can be combined in whatever a process you want. It doesn't need to be, you know, super planned out ahead of time. Now these, as I talked about in my first video, I got them off of Amazon. They are linked in the video description if you want to check them out. I really enjoyed them. They were super affordable and they're very durable. The problem with these is that it was very tricky for me to find one that was the right size. And also just like the jewel appears to be not a very common shape to be used in English paper piecing, but I did finally manage to find a seller on Etsy. I will link her shop information in the description. She was lovely, very easy to work with, good pricing. My only complaint is that the paper itself that is used is very flimsy. It's hardly any thicker than printer paper, whereas the templates from Amazon, they're much heftier. Like they're not cardboard, but they're definitely cardstock. I have so many that I have used dozens and dozens of times, and to the point, in fact, that of the pack of 300 that I got, I then gave about 100 away to friends that I got hooked on this, and I still managed to have a good stack that I have never touched because I keep on reusing these so much, dozens of times. And let me tell you, I am very hard on these. Like I am not babying them at all. They are getting folded, they are getting bent, they're getting jammed in my backpack. So these just much more durable, hold up really well, whereas these ones, the points especially get worn down really fast. And also it's a little bit harder to notice when your needle is passing through the thinner paper because it just hits less resistance. Whereas when you hit this one, it is more noticeable that like, oh, I think I'm sewing through the paper. Like I said, I will link both of those down in the description if you would like to check them out, if you want to, use the same materials that I am. But I will say, if you would like to look into making your own, there were a lot of great suggestions in the comment section from viewers about ways to use dies and cutters and recycled paper to make your own templates. So all of the suggestions will be on screen right now. And while I didn't choose to go for that immediately, it is definitely something I will consider in the future. Plus, a lot of you made a really good point that even if you don't want to buy the tool, there is a good chance that a local makerspace or library might have either the die or a Cricut machine that you can use to print out a bunch of templates. I also cannot wait to experiment with my laser cutter to see if I can make some of my own custom templates on my laser cutter. But those are some fun options, and the good thing about that is that you can then use your own paper, your own scrap paper, things you would recycle anyway. One commenter said that junk mail has never felt more useful, and I love that. I did get a small amount of comments from people noticing or expressing the opinion that it felt very, very tedious to cut out all of those hexagons out of the fabric. And I will say, while that is a very valid opinion, if that is your opinion, then this craft might not be for you, because it is arguably the least tedious, least finicky stage of the entire process. So if the thought already of just cutting out a bunch of hexagons feels overwhelmingly tedious, then the hand stitching, where it requires more precision and more time, is probably going to be even worse. I actually have a little addendum here, an alternative solution, and that is one that my friend does. She actually just cuts her fabric out into squares and sews them down to the templates like that. She doesn't bother to trim off the other corners to make it a perfect hexagon, and that way there's as little cutting as possible and she can get to the sewing faster. So if cutting seems tedious, then maybe try her method. So I got a lot of questions and comments concerning the fabric selection, and did I have any criteria for choosing my fabrics beyond color? Because as we all know, I originally decided to go with the Hobbit colorway, and the short answer is no. I literally just went through all the fabrics that everyone here sent in to me and chose the ones that fit my color scheme, and that was it. I dealt with my selection accordingly after the fact. So thinner fabrics, more shifty and wibbly fabrics, they all got stabilized, as you saw in the video. Thicker fabrics got, well, I tried to leave a bigger seam allowance to account for the turn of cloth. All these sorts of things, because I feel like like, first of all, there was no way to know what was the fiber content of everything people sent in to me. I was not about to burn test all of that. That would have taken forever, but it also didn't feel necessary. I've had a lot of experience working with mixing different types of textiles. I love the effect that it gives. I think it adds a lot of depth to a piece. And so I just chose things based on color and then dealt with what that brought with it later on. And it really honestly was not that challenging. Got lots of tips in that video for how to tackle those challenges, but I think it's definitely pretty worth it. Other things people wanted to know was, how was I dealing with the grain line on all these various pieces? Was I worrying about them at all? And the answer to that was no. I literally wasn't, because here's the thing, it's a hexagon. So there's no way to really place it so that the grain line is consistent throughout the whole piece. Or I guess technically there could be, but that sounds really fiddly. And while I do like being tedious and fiddly in certain aspects of my sewing, that seemed incredibly unnecessarily fiddly. This is a piece that's not going to be under a lot of stress. It's just going to sit hanging in that room divider, as you saw. So there seemed like no real reason for me to worry about the grain line. This is not a garment that's going to be under a lot of duress and strain. And I would just say that if you are worried about the grain line of your fabric, you can either just keep track of it and respect the grain line, or you could alternatively stabilize the entire piece once it's done, whether that is with interlining, interfacing, quilting it to a backing to keep it stabilized, all sorts of things like that. But for me personally, I didn't worry about it too much. Well, I thought this was just going to be one video, but it turns out that I have enough footage and you have enough questions that I'm just gonna have to make a second video. Oh no, more crafting videos. So if you have a burning question that I didn't answer, or a great tip that you would like to share with other budding paper piecers, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And also, if you started your own paper piecing project recently, especially if it was inspired by my video, please consider sending me a picture of it, because I would love to share them as inspiration as part of that next video. So preferably in YouTube format, that would be 16:9 landscape rather than portrait short form. That's a little bit harder for me to use. So you can email them to me. My email is down in the description, as is my P.O. box address if you would like to send fabric for the community patchwork project. And if you want to check out either that first paper piecing video I did or the full video of me opening your fabrics, they should be on screen right now. Should we go into what I consider to be tedious sewing? It's gonna go down a rabbit hole, but also it involves a really cool project that I never showed anybody on my channel because I never finished the video. So maybe we're gonna go off on a little side tangent here and talk about what my level for tedium is